today in the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace.
Well, all right. Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, well, we're going to talk about anarchy. Anarchy, when I think of anarchy, I think when you think anarchy, Kevin, we think chaos. We think people throwing Molotov cocktails at buildings and police cars, and we think of the Black Lives Matter like protest of flipping over cop cars and kicking in cop windshields. And you think of maybe the punkers in back in the day, 70s.
1970s
That's at
punk.
least,
Yep.
and maybe it's because we're from that older generation, and that's where our mind goes. But when I started hitting YouTube and, trying to search out anarchy and get different insights and different cool things, what I got was Portland, Seattle hipster. They all had the hat. Now, I didn't go grab a sweater because it's hot, but they all had the sweater and they were like, hi, guys. So, the reason we like anarchy is because it's really cool and government is bad and we could all just get together and smoke pot. It was kind of like that.
Yeah, you have to get the
And
nerd glasses too,
the nerd
What do they call them?
glasses.
Birth control
So
glasses.
that was the whole thing. Like everything I watched was like, yeah, basically the government just sucks and they're evil and they're always trying to oppress people and they're bad and they take our money. And if we just got together, we could all live together in a nice hippie commune and it would all be good. And
Right,
I
right.
think what they mean is, and we could all be high.
Mhm.
But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, weed
So,
and orgies. What's wrong with that?
right. So some guy who I never even really paid much attention to, everybody was quoting this Enrico Malatesta. And he was he wrote a book called A Companion to Anarchy. And basically he breaks it down as anarchy equals without government. And I think that's reasonable. I mean, that's in my mind, in its simplest form, what
Yeah,
anarchy
that's
is.
what anarchy is, right?
And I accept that. And basically he said, because, well, he basically gives this whole rundown of, well, if you grew up in slavery as a slave, then that's all you knew and you would just accept it. And I'm like, I'm not sure they really just accepted it and were cool with it. Like, I don't think they were like, oh, well, this is how it
It's
is. So,
fine.
like that was his premise. And so the idea is we live in slavery is what their argument is. And we just don't know it. So like you've been conditioned and I mean, in a way, I say these kind of things like, well, if a company didn't have like an organized leader and a decision maker, then nothing would really get done. People wouldn't show up on time. People would be lazy and do whatever, and you wouldn't get things done. Now, I think as you go to the more micro business or as it shrinks down, the smaller it is, like the more directly you are to the results, I think the more motivated you are to work, right?
Right.
If my company, I have a skid steer and a bulldozer and a dump truck, and we basically clear fields. And if we clear 20 fields, we get $20,000. And if we clear 5 fields, we get $5,000 and we all split it up. Then you can bet your ass I'm going to be working hard to get to 20. I don't need somebody being a boss man. You know what I'm saying? But when you have 1,000 people and they're not getting that same like equal piece of the pie if they work harder or not, it gets more and more removed. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
that's kind of the idea. But basically, he's saying that we only want that world because that's what we've known and we've been conditioned to believe it. Now, I will say it's absolutely true that the government taking like 50% of our paycheck is acceptable to people now, whereas 30 years ago, well, 30 years ago, they were probably still taking 50% of your paycheck.
Yeah, yeah.
But
60, 70 years
100 years
ago.
ago,
Yep.
70 years ago, that was not acceptable. You know,
Mhm.
we threw tea in the harbor for 3% tax. You know,
Right.
that's the kind of thing.
Right. And now and yeah, we're not paying 50% tax,
Mhm.
but put in Social Security, Medicare, you know,
Yeah. No,
I
right.
live in New York State. They take a big chunk out of it too. So
No,
really about 40% of my income is gone before I even get my check.
exactly. No, it's before you get your check, and then there's another on the back end.
Right.
So
And then I got to
another
pay
10,
taxes
20.
on everything I buy.
And that's what I meant. I didn't mean straight income tax.
Right.
But when you look at what's taken out of your check and then what's taken out in sales tax and the property tax you pay, people are like, oh, it'd be straight anarchy. There'd be no roads. And, God, the whole thing had just collapsed. No fire departments, no policemen, straight anarchy. Right. And that's always, the mindset. So anyway, that's the thing. So the quote I had was, we would have natural order if we had anarchy. Unity of humans, or unity of human needs and the interests of all would be met. That would just happen. Like, I don't know
Mhm.
how your interests
Right.
would be met.
Right.
We'd have complete freedom within complete solidarity. That sounds like some straight hippie shit to me. It
Yeah.
sounds like you've been maybe smoking some pot and you were like, yeah. So basically, I don't know. It's the problem. It's funny because I was reading about all the anarchy, like revolutions. Because remember, like Russia was pretty horrible and messing with Ukraine. I know you're thinking, oh, you mean last week? No, I'm
Yeah.
actually talking about like Lenin, or way back,
Yeah.
right?
The 20s and 30s.
Right. It was brutal. And the people kept rising up saying, hey, we don't want government. And it was like, for those of you who maybe don't know history that well, it would be like saying, hey, we don't want Hitler. Well, yeah, that's true, because Stalin and all that.
Mhm.
It was bad. It was bad. And Russia was really trying to crush people, and they really were trying to starve out people. So getting rid of that would have been a good idea. And so they kept coming up with, hey, we should have no go at government. And it's funny, one of the big anarchist beliefs is that there's there should be no like kind of structured leadership or government. And in a lot of the writings, and including that Malatesta, he said that even a true anarchist, if given absolute power or given power, would still become corrupted.
Mhm.
And so nobody wants to kind of have leadership. So what's ironic is the people keep rising up against, big government. And yet every time it kind of falls apart because they don't
Back
have
to a
any kind of
dictatorship.
organized structure, and they
Right.
don't have leadership. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that's kind of your argument, is that we don't need it, but then you can't overcome
Right.
the people because you don't
You
have
know
it.
what it is, Chuck? There are
I'm
too
a
many
jerk.
dickheads. There are too many
Yes.
dickheads out there. Everybody wants to have sex with everyone else's wives for some reason.
They
You
do
know,
like
it
that.
always ends up being that. That always ends up being the outcome.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? What are you
All
gonna
right.
do?
So,
Now,
yeah, who are these disruptors, or where are you going to go? Tell me what you're thinking.
well, one of the ideas that came out of the late 1800s was the propaganda of deeds. So this is an anarchist idea, and basically what they're saying is you can't preach to other people and convince them to be anarchists. You have to blow shit up
Oh,
and show them how good things are when things are all getting blown up.
yes.
So you have to show, you have to teach people by showing them, not by telling them. You have to shoot people. You have to kill. McKinley was shot by anarchist, right? He
Mhm.
was assassinated by an anarchist. There's a lot of anarchists that have been out there doing this type of shit. And most of the time, when you read about anarchists, they're like in their early 20s. You know what I mean? By the time you get to 30, 40, you realize that shit doesn't really work out. But I mean, listen, we're all young anarchists at some point in our lives, and I fully support that.
Now, so there are a lot of these actual communes. Like, I didn't just make this up. Like, you
Right.
said you did some research. There's like these actual hippie communes where
Yeah,
they're
these are
like,
ones
yeah,
that
we're
are
government
open.
free.
and you can join right now. The
See, I always,
Stapleton Colony,
all right.
the Federation of Egalitarian Communities, ZAD de Notre Dame, Black Bear Ranch, Longo Mai, the Farm, Acorn Community. You can just go online and look these all up, and you can move there and be an anarchist. Now, when
Yes.
it comes to anarchist communes, they're not the most financially stable.
Okay.
They're not really like the best at making sure everybody's treated fairly and respectfully, but they do throw the best parties. So if you're going to join a commune and you're into partying, anarchist commune is where you want to go.
We're going to get into Commander X and some other things. And it turns out if you like LSD, this also might be your kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, like I Googled it and they were like some kind of like gypsy painted hippie things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one version. I think the other version that people end up with is some kind of pot fields with hipsters going like, yeah, we hate the government because we want to do illegal shit and do whatever we want. You know, it's
Mm-hmm. I
kind of
like that.
You're down for whatever.
That's my commune. I just want to do illegal shit and whatever I want.
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't know. It's a crazy world out there.
Yeah, and
Now,
that is a drawback though. If you don't like the smell of patchouli, you're not going to have a good time.
now, who are these disruptors? Like, how does it play out in society?
Mm-hmm.
I know you kind of had a favorite that excited you. That was this Dr. Chaos. See the man?
Right. Yeah, Dr. Chaos. So he's from Wisconsin. He was arrested in 1994 for felony negligent handling of burning materials and burglary. And then in 1996, he basically got in his car and just went on a fucking rampage, driving over people's mailboxes and smashing up houses and shit.
That
Just because
sounds
he was
like
an asshole.
anarchy,
Right.
right? That sounds like anarchy to me.
So the thing is, he was a systems administrator. He was a computer analyst in the early 90s when like it was AOL shit still. You know what I mean? And he
Yeah.
started this group called the Realm of Chaos and a chat room called Teens for Satan.
Yeah.
And he got shit. Started getting shit popped off. He was into hacking and urban exploration, and those two things kind of can't come together. So first, he started going to well, there are a bunch of competitors. One was called Fun World, and he went on their website and made it so that any website that you looked up redirected you to a porn site. So right off the bat, he's getting big. He started like recruiting people.
Okay.
He called it the group the Realm of Chaos.
Yeah.
And they were like,
I need my own
like
realm, you know?
Yeah, you need a realm,
I
right?
mean, like the realm of badass, you know?
Yeah.
We need to set that group up. But go on.
So he had people in his group called like Acid Drop and Citizen Zero and DEF CON. And all these people had like, hacker nicknames, usernames or whatever it was. Then he started doing shit like throwing barbed wire over power lines to short everything out.
Tell me you didn't do that when you were a kid. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
He lit a sauerkraut factory on fire and burned it down. I mean, if you hate sauerkraut, what else are you going to do? That's your only option. They estimated he caused about $800,000 in damage.
That's significant.
He would break into radio stations,
and that's
during
like
the night.
1982 money too, right?
Yeah. He was breaking into radio stations in the middle of the night, and he would play satanic music, replace all their music with satanic music. He caused 28 power failures and 20 power service interruptions. And then he went on the run in 2001. They arrested him. They let him out on bond, and he took all $13,000 out of his bank account and took off. So he disappeared for a few years.
Yeah.
Went to Chicago, and using his skills of urban exploration, he started like breaking into subway tunnels and abandoned factories. And he found a bunch of 55-gallon drums of cyanide.
Who doesn't just
in
leave
an
those
abandoned
lying
factory.
around? Yeah,
You just
sure.
forget about that. I don't know what happened to that. So he moved it all underneath underneath Chicago. And he had like an underground lair down there. He basically went through and lockpicked all the locks and replaced them with his own locks. So he was the
He's
only
like
one
the
that could get in
Penguin. I
and
think
out.
the Penguin was the under the city one.
Yep. He
Yeah.
was the Penguin, and he also built a sonic boom gun and a microwave gun. So he was like a supervillain, right? So they ended up finding him underneath the University of Chicago. He was in the tunnels there, and there had been a bunch of burglaries. So they stepped up security, and they ended up catching him and one associate, got away.
Yeah, I think they put in like extra security cameras in the hall, was what I read, like in the tunnels.
And they got him.
He knew some to avoid, but then
Yeah.
they like slipped in some other ones, and he didn't notice. And
and they got him. So when they caught him, he had a vial of cyanide on him.
Sure. Well,
So
you gotta be ready to like kill yourself if you get caught.
Right, but he didn't use it. Come on, guy. That was your chance. But he didn't use it. And they ended up doing all these searches, following back where he had come from, and found all these drums of cyanide. So they arrested him. I think there are 22 federal counts of crimes, and what was it? Chemical weapons charges is what they ended up, charging him for. He got 23 years. He spent 20 years in prison, and now he's out.
All right.
Just running around.
Causing chaos.
Yep. He's out there again. He's not on the run. He's making a lot of money being a hacker for companies, hacking into their.
Really? I feel like if you're in jail for 20 years, you lose touch with.
Here's the thing, though. They kept finding shit in his prison cell. He was in Supermax, but they kept finding like wires and circuit board. Like he was working on shit the whole time.
Okay.
And they gave him a hard time, but he said, this is all these things aren't, it's not none of these things were banned by the prison. He was allowed to have that shit. So you can't give him trouble for having stuff he was allowed to have. So he's back at it, out in the world and living his best life.
Causing chaos. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I think of when I think of a microwave gun, I can't help but think of what was it? The Kids in the Hall was that Canadian show, and they used to run around and they would be like asking you a picture.
Yes, I remember. I'm
microwave
your head.
gun works. You're like, yeah, I'm getting you with my microwave gun, and you're like, I don't really feel anything, but you're being microwaved. You know, I don't know. That's how I imagine it, but maybe it's more sinister than that. I don't really know. Now, when I think of anarchists, I gotta say, I kind of think Anonymous, right?
Right.
Now, I watched this documentary on Anonymous, and it basically was like a joke, is what they're saying. Like they weren't trying to be some big mystery, whatever thing. So what they're saying is, it was kind of crazy. So what they were saying is basically you had these 4chan chat boards, right?
Right.
And it's kind of like Facebook, but for nerds. It was more nobody's regulating it. And it's just text or whatever, like whatever. It just you're in there writing little messages and like, hey, what about this? Hey, you can make mustard gas if you mix this and this, and you can make napalm if you do this, and just different things. And it's kind of like Facebook where crazy attracts crazy. Basically think of it like Reddit. It basically is Reddit. That's right. That's if you don't know 4chan. That's kind of. I mean, guys who like 4chan might be like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not
fucking nerd.
Nerd. You don't get it with your hipster hat and your patchouli smelling armpits. You don't get it.
The thing is, most of these anarchists, these internet anarchists, are nerds, and they seem scary and they do dangerous shit, but they're also like 12 years old,
Right. So basically, when you went in, they when you went into these new groups, it would be your name would automatically be tagged as anonymous.
Right.
And then so you could be, oh, well, I'm anonymous. So that's kind of like where it came from. Like,
Right. Everybody's name in those chat rooms is
right, it's
anonymous.
anonymous. So basically, so a bunch of guys got together. They thought they were cool, and they ended up went on the National Epilepsy Foundation website, and they hacked it, and they basically made the front page of the forums have these gifts that were bright flashing lights that made people have exactly. And so they're all like, stroking out. This is what anonymous really is, right? This is the foundation. And so I guess 4 people ended up going to the hospital before they were able to get it straight and take it down. But it was, a little crazy, right? So they end up there was this guy who was Commander X. Now, Commander X, he wasn't part of Anonymous back then, and he actually heard this story. He was kind of, as far as I can tell, he was kind of like a homeless person who was a little weird. Basically, when he's telling the story, describing himself, he's like, yeah, I was homeless by choice. And what happened was I went to a Grateful Dead concert and I realized I could sell LSD. And I just kind of go around selling LSD. And then I meet all these people and they're like, yeah, we're protesting this tomorrow. And it's kind of like, yeah, I could be part of that protest and I could sell LSD there. And then it kind of keeps going. So he's kind of a man about the world, I guess. And he hears about this whole epilepsy thing. And he's like, you know what? That's really funny. Like he had the same reaction you did. And then he's like, but it's fucked up and wrong. And that's bad. And he's like, but it is funny. And then he's like, but it's wrong. And you're like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I feel the same way, 100%.
He's like,
it's wrong, but
now he's like, he wants to make clear he wasn't part of the government or anything, but he decided he was going to infiltrate this organization. And he was going to, make sure they didn't do any crazy things again. Now, this is Commander X is like, I don't know, scraggly guy, beard, sunglasses. How would you describe it, Kevin? I don't.
He looks like a 40-year-old that lived a hard life and looks like he's 70 years old now.
Yes, that's it. That's him. So I believe he was quoted as saying, well, if you want to be an anarchist hacker, you basically just need to have cool sunglasses and a computer. And he's like, and the computer's optional. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So that's kind of closer to what I think. So anyway, so you're like, well, I remember the big video where they're like, we are legion, we are many, and we're gonna, you can't hide from us, and the whole crazy, right? So basically, what they did was people were putting stuff on YouTube, and it turns out anarchists don't like corporations having power, and they don't like regulations and rules. So what happened was people put up this video of Tom Cruise talking about Scientology, and it was basically kind of pointing out how crazy Scientology is. Like if you're on the outside looking at it, that's how you might interpret it. If you're really like a Scientology guy, you're like, well, we do have superpowers. So, obviously that's logical. Right.
What's his name? Masterson from that 70s show raped all those chicks and got away with it for a long time because of Scientology, because the Scientology magic, Tom Cruise used his magic to protect him. He finally did get sentenced to 30 years though. So
it happens. So basically Tom Cruise is like, well, you got to realize if you're doing Scientology, you have a responsibility. Like if I drive by a car crash, I look over and he goes, I know I'm the only one who can really help them when there's bodies all over. And,
Tom Cruise is the only one that can do it.
Right. Well, because he's a Scientologist. I mean, if another Scientologist was there, sure, but not,
not regular people wouldn't do that.
Not me, right. Paramedics, whatever. No. You got to be Tom Cruise. So basically, Scientology was like, ooh, that paints us in a bad light. So they took down the video like right away. So the hackers were like, hey, that's kind of bullshit. This video is pretty cool. We want it out there. So they actually find the source of the video and they're like, can we get a copy? We want to put it up. They put it up on YouTube, and within 2 minutes, it gets taken down. And they're like, who has that kind of power? This is ridiculous. Screw Scientologists. So they made that anonymous video. It's about Scientology.
Mhm.
That we're coming from you. There's nowhere to hide. We have an army. They were talking to Scientology like people like you aren't going to be able to control us any longer,
Mhm.
and we're going to rise up against you. And then everyone was like, oh shit. And the guy who made the video was like, yeah, then my girlfriend calls me the next morning and she's like, dude, turn on CNN. Your video is on there. And he's like, I thought like 60 people would watch it. Like it was a
Uh-huh.
joke, He's like, and he's like, and it's like a whole statement against the world. And he was like, yeah, we got together and we were like, oh shit, what do we do? Like, how do we harness this power?
Now,
Yeah.
just to interject real quick, have you ever heard that rumor about Tom Cruise going to the grocery store and buying fish and taking them in the bathroom and fucking them?
I don't think you can do that. Can you do that? Like, I guess
Just
if they're
yeah,
big,
you
like
cut them
say
open. You cut them open and just
that you,
it's
okay.
just a rumor I heard. That's
Oh, it's
all.
just some. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Just note, note to self. Kevin reads disturbing stories. All right. All right. So basically, then they're like, how can we capitalize on this? And they were like, we need some kind of unifying thing. And if we're gonna be anonymous, we need, some kind of mask or something.
Right. Some
And
kind of
they basically called around to all the different, like a bunch of the cities that they were going to, and they called like comic shops and were like, hey, what about that Guy Fawkes mask? Do you have any? And they're like, yeah, we thought people would want them after V for Vendetta, but it turns out nobody bought that shit or cared. Because where are you going to really use that in life, right? Like
right.
you're like, oh, I'm going to go out with the Guy Fawkes mask and, want
Mhm.
to be cool. People want to be my friend. Turns out nobody was like, hey, it's Guy Fawkes,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, no problem. And they work it out and they start doing all these things. Then, like, sure enough, soon after that whole Julian Assange thing with WikiLeaks, remember they stole all that they hacked and they released all that information that they shouldn't
Mhm.
have. Or actually, I think somebody gave it to them, right? Wasn't there some enlisted person that got in all kinds of trouble for
Yeah,
turning
like
over the
autistic or
documents?
something and
Yeah,
just confused about
yeah.
life and yeah.
And so they put all that out. And basically, the government put the kind of, the warrant out for Julian Assange, and they were going to take him down. And I guess the way Anonymous interpreted it was, well, we're going to stick up for this guy. I mean, they seem like everything seems like it's about having a good time. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like,
Right.
it seems like, hey, we're just trying to go out and, and party.
Mhm.
And it doesn't seem as involved, but I think they have that internal sense of justice as they see it. And I
Right.
don't
They
think it's
do fuck
necessarily
with a lot of
wrong.
pedophiles and they do fuck with drug
Yeah.
cartels and they do fuck with
And right. And it's like they're doing as much good. Like they did this one hack on I don't know the city. I want to say San Francisco. It might have been San Diego Police Department. Um they hacked it, but it was like crazy legitimate. Like they were like, hey, look, we don't want to hurt or mess with anybody. So what they did was they said, hey, by the way, we're going to hack your website and all your stuff. And we're going to do it on Sunday at 6 p.m. And it's only going to be for a half hour. So just so you know, that's coming.
oh, they
And
gave them warning and they still
yeah,
couldn't
dude. And they hacked it and shut it down. And the
they
whole
still
thing,
couldn't
it
stop them.
was like, they don't want people to get hurt and they don't want, but again, the problem with something like that is anybody can kind of take credit. You know what I'm saying? It's one, it's why it's effective, and two, it's why it's dangerous. It's effective because it's remote and, decentralized, right?
Hmm.
If you can go out with your computer and be like, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and put the anonymous, spin on it. It's funny, they had a uh, anonymous video generator that you could just kind of put in your stuff when I was doing the research, and just cool stuff. So,
Hmm.
I'm just saying, you got to keep your options open. Keep your options open.
Sounds good to me, man.
All right. So what else you got? What other disruptors?
Oh, that was it. There's a long history though of anarchists, and there's actually places that you could move to if you were really into anarchy. You could go to the Congo right now. That is a country in anarchy. You could go to northern Syria. Also a great place to do whatever the fuck you want. These are all places you can go where there's no government.
And
So,
and that's the thing. Like, even to get away from the hacker thing, like Julian Assange. Well, I guess it's right back in the hacker thing.
mhm,
Julian Assange was a huge disruptor, and created anarchy. I mean, I don't know that that's his belief or thing, but he's very anti-government or anti-government control, right? I mean,
right.
I don't know the guy's beliefs. I haven't hung out with him. We didn't chat about it. I'm just saying, if you're exposing all this government corruption, it seems pretty clear that you're against the whole you know thing like that. But so he's another major disruptor. And I think he caused a lot of issues for the government, and he kind of exposed a lot. Same thing, Edward Snowden, right?
Mhm,
Snowden,
right.
huge,
Right.
that,
Everybody thought, "Oh, you're crazy. The government isn't listening to everything you do
right.
and watching everything." Yeah, it turns out they are. Yep. They definitely are.
I can understand why people would want to get away from, government control. I mean, obviously you've heard me talk on this podcast for lots and lots, right? We talk, I mean, the podcast in general, not this episode per se, but I'm very anti-government control. I don't want them in my business. I tend to lean on uh on libertarian views. It's funny, one
Mm,
of the articles that I read on anarchy was, that there really is a huge connection between libertarian and anarchists. And
mhm.
the line is very thin. But here's the thing. Here's my own interpretation on that. Is a libertarian who is somebody who wants no government control and nothing, but doesn't like people. Whereas an anarchist wants no government control in anything, but wants to hang out in a big hippie commune.
Right,
Like, they're
right.
like, yeah, let's all get together and share stuff and make banana bread with pot or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know. I don't know if that's a
Make
thing. If you
banana
can
bread
make
with pot
banana
in it
bread,
while we're on an LSD.
right? Well, you're on LSD. That's the thing. Like, that whole Commander X was like, yeah, I go around to concerts and I go around to these protests and I sell the drugs and whatever. But there was a big thing on the homeless. And he was like, look, you can't outlaw being homeless. And then I guess after they kind of protested that, there was a law where you can't sleep on the ground after
Mhm.
certain hours. It's kind
Right.
of weird. And again, I think it's all San Diego, but like I said, I
Yeah.
could be
It
wrong.
was
It could be
basically it was
one one of
targeting
those
homeless
hippie
people. Right.
California cities. I mean, they're all the same to me. I don't know. You actually used to live in San Diego, isn't that correct? Or
I did. I did. And there were a lot of homeless people
a lot
there.
of homeless?
Mhm.
A lot of homeless people everywhere. It's what
Yeah.
I tend to find.
Yeah,
Um,
go to any major city. They're all hanging out. And the smart
yeah,
ones don't the smart ones live in cities
in
down
the
south
South.
where it's
Yeah.
warm. The dumb ones freeze to death in New York City.
They're like, it's so cold. I'm in Chicago. I don't understand.
Yeah, every winter Chicago and New York pretty much clear out their homeless population because of that.
Yeah, you don't last too long sleeping on the street. And I guess New York City, it was always the big thing. They'd have those like steam grates
Mhm.
where
Right.
somehow,
And
like,
you set
from
up your
the
cardboard right
subway
on top.
tunnels, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's always kind of exhausting out.
Mhm.
But as long as you're not over Commander or Dr. Chaos there, you'd be all right.
Yeah.
As long as the cyanide isn't,
As long as it's steam coming up and not cyanide gas.
And not cyanide, that's how it gets. But that's the thing. So they actually in San Diego or wherever it was, they had a no blanket law where it was illegal to lay on the ground covered by a blanket.
Okay.
And you're like,
so you can lay on the ground on top of a blanket, but you can't have one on top of you.
Yeah, right,
All
right. But at that point, you're like, oh, maybe my government has gone a little far,
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of these cities now they make these like homeless parks. And then the problem is everybody's pooping and you can't build enough bathrooms.
Yeah, see, that is the problem with no government, is everybody has to shit. Yeah, everybody has to shit every once in a while, and you can't just leave it laying around,
That's the problem is like New York City, right? You go there and it just smells like pee. And you're like, are they peeing everywhere?
Yeah.
Like, is it everywhere I go?
Yeah.
And yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's the downside. So if you want to live in a world that doesn't smell like patchouli and poop and pee,
Mm-hmm.
maybe anti-anarchy, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean that's a slow burn has a good point. Anarchy is being self-sufficient and separating yourself from government regulations by buying locally and using cash. That's really the kind of anarchist I am.
Yeah. I mean that sounds like 90% of our listeners, including myself. I'm like, wait, separate from people. Yes, check. Buying everything with cash, check, because so people are out of my business.
Mm-hmm.
Hates government regulations, always, less government. And I'm always like, yep, check. Yeah, sounds like I might be an anarchist.
Yeah.
I just don't want a hippie commune. And like I said, I don't care if you're out smoking pot, whatever you do,
right.
That's not my
That's
world.
not Chuck's thing.
Getting
high and tripping on LSD and having orgies. Yeah. I mean, everything else though, I'm all in.
Well, sure.
The orgy thing always seemed a little weird to me though. It seems like you have to buy like special lotions and wear a bathrobe all the time. Like I don't know.
Now back to your Tom Cruise and the fish story.
It's whole fish. Yeah, it's whole fish. It's not fillet.
Okay.
Yeah, so you get the whole fish, and he was cutting them open, according to the rumors.
You have too many details.
According to these are this is just stuff I heard. This is just
now. I don't know if after this episode we're going to get in trouble with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I don't believe
we're going to get in trouble with.
Just to be clear, I don't believe he did it. Okay, it just seems like there's a lot of rumors about it for it to be completely false. It's like, how many times are you going to hear about Richard Gere and the gerbil up his ass before you have to really think if it's not if it's a question. You know what I mean? Then you have to after a certain point you have to wonder if it's really just a rumor.
Yeah, well, I feel like something that's hot like that, it's gonna stick, right? I don't know. Anyway, Anonymous might be after us now.
Scientology is going to be after us now. Yep.
I feel like we said anything negative about Anonymous, really. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of, I think we expressed what they are, right? Like that they seem like they're out doing their thing. But Scientology, they're definitely going to come after you, Kevin. I'm just saying, watch out. Car bombs, whatever. They do what they do. I'm just, hey. I'm just saying Kevin was the one who did everything wrong. I just sat here in my hipster hat.
Yeah, listen, if I go outside and find a used fish on my front steps, I'll take that warning seriously. You know what I mean? I won't say anything else about Scientology ever again.
It's an ugly world we live in. So anyway, we appreciate if you guys, we appreciate all the comments. We appreciate if you like and subscribe, comments on the podcast. We really, feedback. We love it. You can email us questions, concerns, show ideas at preppingbadass@gmail.com. And you can get cool gear. Like you can get Survival and Basic Badass coffee mug. You can get cool t-shirts all at preppingbadass.com. Otherwise, I would say stay safe, and we will talk to you guys next week if I can find the end here.